Okay, so I'm gonna get ready to introduce our panel moderator. But first I want to tell you kind of how it is we ended up having a program on this today. We were sitting around with Sarah Watkins, who founded AUsome Sauce. She's right over here. Sarah is a graduate of the Women Rising Leadership Academy through the Chamber and very, very engaged in the Chamber and in the Academy. And we were sitting around talking about her and her family and people that she knows that have kids who are neurodiverse and which businesses they'll go to and which ones they won't because of the experience they know they're going to have. And I thought, wow, I have members that probably Sarah wouldn't go to because she's not going to have a good experience for her children. And we got to talking about it, and actually it's just not that hard to make it more of an inviting environment. And in fact, there's several cities and several different groups that are doing things that help these families feel welcome and want to go to their establishments. So that was how we ended up here today. So we're calling this a business opportunity, but it's something that Sarah will share the stats, but when you hear what she has to say, you're going to recognize that this is something that for the better of our community and for the success of our businesses, we all need to be aware of. So with that, I will say that Sarah is the founder of AUsome Sauce, a nonprofit organization based in Brea, California, dedicated to supporting families with young neurodiverse children. Her journey began when her son was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2. Feeling isolated and uncertain during the early stages of his diagnosis, Sarah sought to create a community that could provide the connection and support she found lacking. After facing challenges and collaborating with existing groups, she took the initiative to establish AUsome Sauce in 2022. The organization offers inclusive events, educational resources, and parent-to-parent connections, aiming to build a world where children of all abilities are accepted and celebrated. In addition to her role at AUsome Sauce, Sarah is dedicated mother, wife, and advocate with her community. Her work has been recognized by local leaders, and she continues to strive for a future where every neurodiverse individual receives the support and opportunities they deserve. She will introduce the rest of our panelists, but for now, would you please help me welcome Sarah Watkins. Do you want to hold this, or do you want? Oh, I guess well, you can go down. You can go down.
I can hold it for now.
Hello.
Can we hear me?
Yep.
Too close? Okay. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you to Lacey and the Chamber for allowing me to speak today. This is a very, I'm a little nervous, but the opportunity I think is very important, like Lacey said. And I hope everyone got a chance to see the sensory area. If not, please make sure you stop by, because it took a lot of effort and a lot of the things from our own home to bring here. And just so you know, these are items that we actually have taken out of our homes that our children use. And all of our board members are here from AUsome Sauce, and every single one of us, except for one, has children with autism. I want to say also on your tables, you'll see a lot of the little items that we use, fidgets and poppets and the pens from Glenn Green over at White Rhino Marketing. I've never been so excited for a pen in my life because it has our logo on it. Thank you, Glenn. So, like Lacey said, my organization was established here, but I also moved to Brea in 2020. I grew up in La Habra, so the mall is very much a part of my life and still is. If you ask my husband, talk about he asked me the other day how many times I go a week. So when I moved to Brea, it was in January. I was pregnant with my second child, another little boy. And a month later, the pandemic hit. At that point, I had been living in a year of my son's diagnosis. He was diagnosed at 2, just 2 years after his second birthday, or actually after he was born, after his second birthday. And so it was difficult because I was still going through the grief process. And I think when we talk about grief is often a person or something that actually leaves, right? Our grief, my grief, is my son is still here. And that is difficult because I grieve it's a different type of grief. It's a grief that I miss certain opportunities, or I think he might miss certain opportunities. And that's a little devastating. And it comes in waves, it comes in instances, it comes in hours, and it could just be something that I see or something that I've experienced, and that grief is so hard to live with. And when the pandemic hit, it really had shown me the work that we need to do as a family. You are separated from community, and now you're trying to raise 2 little children in a world that seemed a little scary. And it was difficult for me to figure out what I was gonna do next. Social media boomed, and that was a big change in people's lives because now it was from the outside turning in. And that's where I had noticed that a lot of people were showcasing their lives and what living with a child with autism or a neurodiverse child was like. I had come across an account where a mother had really shown a community that she built in her city. And I said, where can I find that? And I, like Lacey said, I had tried, I'd gone to support groups, but they're a little intimidating. And this allowed me to really hit the ground running with an idea. I went to the city of Brea, and they were the ones that were open, and they allowed us to utilize their enclosed park, because if you know a child or a toddler at a park, it's difficult, but if you know a child at a park that has autism, get ready to wear your sneakers and run, because they elope, and that means they take off. And it's a very scary experience where I myself had to almost run into oncoming traffic, and it's terrifying. And so I really wanted to, I knew at that point that if I was feeling that way, there are other parents in my community that were feeling that way. So I got together, I hoped for 8 children, and we had 18 our first meeting. And we've been now 3 years going, and we continue to grow, and we've expanded our community, and I just feel very comfortable now to say that we're doing something, and that's why I'm here today. So thank you so much. We talked about, you mentioned the statistics. When my son was diagnosed, it was 1 in 44 children were diagnosed with autism. That was just 6 years ago. Just a couple weeks ago, the CDC updated that. The gap has closed. It's now 1 in 31. And it's only increasing. And we don't need to go into all of everything that's being said, but it is important to know that we're being educated, and that's why the diagnosis rates are changing, because we know more. And I think in addition to my research, I found that Orange County, I think, is out of the 5 in California, number 4 of the highest rates of children with special education, or within special education, that are diagnosed. So we're pretty high up. And I think that's important to understand, that it's gonna affect us, businesses especially, even more, because you're gonna have families that are coming through, you're gonna have families that are experiencing it, and that's why it's just so important to understand that you need to make even slight changes, because they're even educating a little bit of staff, even having fidgets, even just noticing some particulars. For instance, if you own a restaurant or you own a business and you see a family that walks in and they're with an adult child, that adult child might have a Thomas the Train or a Mario car or a Hot Wheel, and it seems different, right? But it doesn't mean that it's an issue, and all you have to do is just maybe have a conversation, ask, be a little bit more accommodating, just even noticing, because a lot of times we're not noticed and the kids aren't noticed, and they might have an iPad, and it might not be because they actually want to watch YouTube, it's because actually that's the way they speak. And we actually have those iPads here because some of our children don't speak. And so I just appreciate that I'm here to just explain why these little changes can make a difference for myself, and that's why we will come back. And I'll tell you one thing, and I say this often, if you build that safe space, they will come, meaning myself and our community, because we have that conversation, we'll explain and connect and say, let's meet here, because it's just so much more of a community aspect, and we feel comfortable. So before I continue to rant on, I want to bring on our panelists, because they're going to give some more insights on what we can do. So let's bring everybody up. Can we talk, Luana, you want to come on out? Sure. Luana Acuña, she's an inclusion specialist at the city of Irwindale, and I thought having someone that is with the city partner or another city can explain what changes and opportunities they're providing there. Eric from Goodwill, Business Development at Goodwill. I see him quite often. Hannah Castillo. She's one of our business general manager over at Will Ellison, who's been over at the chamber recently. Christine Marick, please. And Dr. Alejandra, our student services director. Okay, so our first question is, do you believe that sensory-friendly spaces can increase customer loyalty? Why or why not? I mean, I feel like that's the first, oh, there you go.
This is on. Yeah. I absolutely think it can increase customer loyalty. At Little Elephant, we're an indoor playground. Our motto has always been that we are building a village for other people who don't have one. And that includes the parents of neurodivergent children. Because if they don't have a safe place to go, then we are not part of their village. So we want to make sure that safe place is with us. And we see parents returning time and time again with their child with special needs because of the fact that they feel safe with us, that we have accommodated for a safe space. We are an enclosed playground as well, so elopement is not an issue with us. Some parents even find a hard time getting out themselves. But you will definitely see an increase in the community because that's what it is. It's a community. It's word of mouth. A lot of our business is word of mouth. We put very little budget towards marketing because it is from parent to parent that is talking. I feel safe here. I feel comfortable here. My child loves it here. They have different sensory options. They change all the time. That is why I think our business is such a welcoming aspect of the community with people who have neurodivergent needs and such things like that, is because we are willing to learn and accommodate.
Thank you. I'll start with accommodating. When we're talking about kids who have disabilities or have sensory issues, it's really important to be inclusive and support everyone. When you create spaces where families and kids and even adults who have different needs, where they feel included, where the environment is created to be welcoming, people will return, just like Sarah mentioned. They will feel at home. They will talk to their, to their peers, to their friends and families, and you will have, a loyal customer.
Well, I'm privileged that I get to work with people with autism when they turn 22 or older. So I get to help them find employment. So there is hope for those of you that have a child. They will get a job. And I'm going to give a shout out to the Red Lobster here in Brea. They've employed some of our folks for over 10 years. When you talk about inclusiveness, so I have a son who's nonverbal. When we go to a restaurant, instead of them looking at me, they'll look at my son. Kyle, did you want your quesadilla again? We go there all the time because they acknowledge him. So when you talked about making it family friendly, or talk to that individual that may be on the spectrum. So if they have that train, hey, that's a cool train, buddy. Tell me about it. I guarantee you, your business will never end. Whether it's a restaurant, a hotel, no matter what you have it, just treat them like an individual, like you would anyone else.
Thank you. I think the answer is just yes, right? Like in one word, but I think I got invited here to talk, or just because of the Air Vista Park renovation. And one of the things that the city looked at, we wanted that to be an all-inclusive park. Let's call it a decade plus ago when we started talking about it. That was about physical disabilities. And as we started to plan for this park, that things have changed over that decade. And so the city engaged with different groups, including AUsome Sauce, to talk about, we do need that pony wall, for example, around the playground area. That wasn't in the original plans. But I will say the reason that we wanted to build an all-inclusive park was, of course, for everyone's benefit. But I also think it's going to be a great draw to our city. So everything that we do is an investment. And so, I look at this new park, which I hope will be open by the end of this calendar year. Before anyone asks, construction dates are always sliding. But I think it's going to be actually a source of economic development for us. You'll come to this playground and then shop downtown, go to the mall. Yeah, that's actually, I did that many years ago when my kids were little. They're now quite big. We went to San Clemente where they have an all-inclusive park, and then we went to the outlets, and then we had lunch at Ruby's, and that was a very expensive day for me to go check out a municipal park. So I do think it's important that we share it, and there are benefits that follow from that.
I agree with everything everybody said, but absolutely, I think having a sensory-friendly, inclusive business or public space is good for business. Before I joined the city of Irwindale as an inclusion specialist, I was a disability service provider, similar to Goodwill, worked with adults, trying to find employment in the community. So I understand the needs of businesses, and it's not a bad thing to want to make a profit and want to grow your business. So I think in becoming more sensory friendly, you're creating a place where people want to come. They want to spend money in your businesses. They want to buy homes in your community. But it also creates an environment that is welcoming for your workforce, because I guarantee you have employees that may have shared with you that they have a different kind of ability. Some may have not, some may not know it. They just know they have a different kind of need. But it also attracts really good candidates to work for your companies. But families, when we're going somewhere, we're going to dinner, we're going on a vacation, we're on the internet, we're looking up your websites. We want to see if you have your menus online. We want to see if you have photos of the seating and the parking lot, what it looks like. And so these aren't really expensive things that you kind of have to overthink. It's really just the basic things of wanting to know what we're walking into. And it's not limited to just a restaurant, or a store. It could be a bank. If I'm going to go and apply for a loan and I have my kids with me, if you pull out a tote like this with some fidgets in it, I'm going to stay longer. I'm going to stay longer at your car dealership because my kids aren't going to be having a meltdown and I'm not leaving in tears, and then we all leave in tears and we don't want to go back. And it wasn't anything that you did, but our experience just wasn't great. So making those small adjustments are good for business as well. I live in the city of La Puente. My daughter had a lot of anxiety when it came to going to the dentist. We found a wonderful dentist in Brea, went there every single time she had an appointment. There were plenty of dentists closer to my home, but they weren't patient with her and understanding of her anxiety. So they stopped accepting her insurance. We found an also wonderful dentist in Fullerton. I drive my kids there. They're now both in braces. So every month we're going down there, and there are many options closer to our home, but it's not worth it for us. We will drive any distance to go to a business that is welcoming and patient and understanding with our family, and we refer other people to those places as well. So it's a good experience, it's a good thing to do, but it's also good business.
I agree. Okay, next question. You talked about the small changes. So just having those fidget toys I think is super important. I found all of mine on Amazon, and I can buy 900 for $12.99, whatever that may be. And it just takes that tiny change, and you're completely right in that. So you gave a great example. Any other examples you can think of, but small changes for a business that they can do?
I just want to touch on what you said, because having something like that is not only like, oh, like we had a good time, it's memorable. So that's a parent going to be like, that was a memorable experience. I'm going to tell every single person in my family. Those people were accommodating. Whether they need it or not, you had made a change in the perspective of your business. And I think that is a huge thing as a parent, for sure. And I'm sure, like, whether we're a parent or not, we all know someone with kids. And whether they have autism or ADHD or something like that, even whipping that out, just be like, this kid can't settle, that's going to make a huge difference as well. And it's not, like, I'm sure all of you find yourself, like, picking up the sensory toys, and you don't have autism, you're not neurodivergent yourself, but you're like, oh, this is fun. Like, this is something too. And that's something that every parent will take when they see that effort being made, and they will spread it to their community. They'll spread it to their village.
I can tell you, if I have a good experience, I definitely am bringing that to the
Yeah.
table with all of our, just my board members, but yes,
Mhm.
we're having that conversation. Okay, let's move on.
I can talk
You
about
wanna talk? Yeah, I was gonna
Yes,
say if you wanna bring that up.
absolutely. I have an experience that I want to share with you. A couple years ago, I was having dinner with my sister and brother-in-law and their dog at a restaurant. It was a break. There was a lot of people around. Even outside, it was crowded. And all of a sudden, we start hearing a kid. He was probably in middle school, screaming and yelling. And it almost sounded like he was screaming and yelling at his mother. And everybody started looking. And when I was looking, I noticed exactly what was happening. There was a person, a young adult, who had a lot of sensory needs and was overstimulated. So he was dealing with that stimulation and that feeling in their body. So I got up, I took the dog, and you know, based on my background as the director of special education and student services, I started practicing some grounding strategies with him to really distract him from like the feeling that he was going through. So I started pointing things out, and I asked him, please point out your head, point out your nose, point out your hands. And then I had him pet the dog. He de-escalated, was calm in a matter of seconds. Mother was distressed. She was almost crying. And as a parent, like when your child acts out, like you feel judged. And it is really, really, really hard when people don't understand the why. When I went back to the table, my sister and brother-in-law was like, what just happened? So I explained to them what was going on, and their response was like, I had no idea. So I shared this story with you because all it takes is wanting to understand and being open to understand without judging. Because judgment really doesn't support anyone. It doesn't support you as an individual, or it doesn't support the people who's going through that experience. That to say, my biggest thing, aside from providing, you know, supports and creating an environment that does leave you with a positive relationship, I would say is knowledge and training. Knowledge of training of your employees. And when you see something that is odd, not judging, and coming from a place of, you know, let's connect. Let's say hello. Let's ask a question. Let's ask them what they need. And this goes to everyone, even, you know, an adult who may come into your business and might have had a bad day and might be upset. Rather than responding at the same level, saying, hello, how are you doing? Can I help you? Is there anything that you need? It's important, especially for parents who, I mean, raising kids is hard. I have two. But raising kids that have additional needs is even harder and isolating.
Yeah.
So just being kind and, you know, getting training and more knowledge and how this impacts students, kids, families, parents, adults is important.
I think also to your point is just asking a question.
Mhm.
Just asking is
Yes.
how can I accommodate you?
Mm-hmm.
Do you need some accommodations? It's very, yeah, to your point, yes.
So I'm here for the city, but in my day job, I run a Boys and Girls Club. And one of the things that we see is there are a lot of kids who have a technical diagnosis, and there are many who don't, whether that's a parental choice that they're not investigating some maybe behaviors or situations that we see and we talk to parents about. Some of them don't want to know. I'm not sure, but what we try to do is create a safe space, and we're not just working with that child, but to your point, educating everyone in the building about how we speak to each other, how we de-escalate things. De-escalation is huge for our staff, but we're also working on those skills with the kids who are in our building, frankly, just for the greater good of like society everywhere. So I think that's something that we can all, to your point, carry with us, whether we're in a restaurant or in our job every day. It's really a part of our mission, and we see it with our staff as well, who are probably on the spectrum in some way, but they're young adults who probably aren't, if they're first choice to go get healthcare, it's not going to be in that arena. So I think to the point that Sarah made about the diagnosis and the prevalence, it's probably even higher than that would be my guess, right? That those numbers are only going to go higher, and that's who we all are in some way. I've always told my kids, like, I have 2 kids, right? So they're always ribbing on each other, even as they get older. And someone will say, oh, so-and-so this. I said, well, we're all weird. We're all unique. We're all different. It's just how we relate between ourselves and how we recognize that and whether we respect that and appreciate that or denigrate that. So in our household, we're going to respect and appreciate that. And I think that's something that we can all carry forth as we go and hopefully educate others on that.
Anyone else? Okay. This will be thrown for you, Dr. Velez. What roles do schools and educators play in encouraging community-based sensory awareness? I mean, I know we're working together on that, but yeah.
You want to
down?
start it?
Hey, well, who wants to go first?
I will say that teachers have the biggest voice when it comes to this topic, especially because they are the professionals, and I think the key is listening to the professionals. I myself have a sister-in-law who's been working in special education for over 10 years, and I admire her strength in doing so because she encounters a lot of families where they're just shipping them off there to school just so they're out of the house for the day, and her job is to make sure that they thrive in the environment she creates. So again, listening to the professionals, she has definitely come to me and is like, this is what you can do to make sure it's a sensory friendly time for like students like mine. She's like, and I would love to bring students to your playground. I would love to have field trips to your playground because I know that you guys are making an effort to make it sensory friendly, especially for students like hers.
Thank you. So, as you know, the educational system was founded to prepare students to become fruitful citizens. So the educational system is key in creating an inclusive environment and educating everyone. And I would say from the district level, just training principals so that they can train their teachers, so that they can provide the support that all students need, including kids with sensory issues. How do we support them in the general education setting? Because at the end of the day, they're going to be in society with everybody else. So it's really important for not just a student with a disability to be able to socialize and interact with their non-disabled peers, but it's also important for the non-disabled peers to understand and be able to interact and have meaningful relationships. So as I said before, it goes back to, especially in my role, creating awareness and educating everyone so that they're able to support our students, all of our students. One of the things that I was talking with my teammate was really standardizing the sensory and the calming corners in every single classroom, which obviously takes financing. So anybody interested in donating, we're very, very happy to build that relationship. But absolutely, so education, creating safe spaces where people feel welcome. Again, when you talk about sensory, it's like what you see, what you hear, what you feel. This is everyone. It creates a relationship. It creates an environment. It creates, trust.
I think us working together too to create that school and parent connection is important because that's often difficult sometimes. And so I took a little bit of time to be a part of where my son goes to school, and now that I am, I feel a lot more comfortable, and that's what I always encourage. It took me some pushing, thank you, Kim, to get to that point, but it is really important, and we've formed those relationships, and we've created this inclusion team that are working with the district now, and I'm hoping to continue that.
I agree 100%. I mean, parents, you know your kids best.
Yeah.
So it's just really important to have that collaboration and communication and involvement, especially for the educators to build that bond and relationship.
I'm just saying it is the inclusiveness because when they get out of school, then they're going to go into the workforce. So if they're already prepared and know what to expect, it really makes that transition much, much easier.
just piggybacking on what the others were saying, the school is where families are figuring it out, and it's the location of some really high stress, difficult points of children's lives. It's where maybe a family's figuring out a diagnosis, a teacher's making a referral. It's really hard for a lot of kids to sit in a classroom for 6 hours, and it's just a place where there's a lot of highs, a lot of lows, but a lot of families really trust their schools and their teachers to guide them in the right way. So the more we can connect with our local schools, the better, because those teachers are going to talk to the families and say, hey, I know your kid's looking for a soccer league. Why don't you try this one over here? They do really great with kids with different needs. Or this restaurant over here, or this hotel is wonderful. A lot of my families go there also. So they're a great source of referrals, but also making the community connections as well. There's a lot of trust that the families have in the schools, but you can also bring information back to the teachers in schools as well. You know, they have so much on their plates already, but we can always bring new things to them that will help them as well to make that connection with everyone. And then I know Sarah's doing some great stuff with the PTO in her community. So your PTAs, your PTOs, you know, they're always welcoming donations, sponsorships for their events. Those are events where there's really a lot of community connection that takes place between the school, the community, the students, the families. And they tend to be fun kind of events where people are a little bit more relaxed and more open. But, you know, there might be a parent that just has that kid that's difficult and they feel judged and embarrassed, but maybe through that PTO event, they can make friends with another mom, and that could lead to a play date, and that will lead to a better experience in school and then in the workforce at some point. Those relationships are really important. So that's also a way that the business community can support your schools, is through those PTO, PTA events and helping build those really cool sensory rooms in every classroom as well.
I'm excited for that. Anything else? Okay. I think if anything, because one of the questions I have here is, what can businesses, educators, organizations adapt to in the future? And this is, I think, just the start of that. This is a conversation that I think you can have amongst yourselves, amongst other businesses that you come in contact with. And I feel like that's the answer to the question, is just continuing that education and just being a little bit more open to learning about the sensory needs and what others might, you know, those adjustments they may need in your business area. And I'm just very grateful. Thank you so much for your guys' time. If anyone wants to do any questions, are there any questions?
Can I kick off with one? Yeah. And then we'll go to you.
Okay.
So I wrote down something that, who said this? I think maybe you did, Alejandra. The common corner and safe space. So I don't know what that is.
Okay.
But we have so many people here that have businesses. Dr. Anastasia Lander, she actually has a sensory area in her chiropractic practice, but the Ontario Airport is here. We have several other businesses that have place in their businesses. Green Tomato Grill is here. How can they create a calm corner or safe space in those type of businesses or those places?
Good question. It's a great question. Well, the calming corner for us is huge. That was everything that you saw there. Those are what we have in the corners of our rooms, or we pull out from, you know, behind a cupboard or whatever, that allows our kid to regulate. Well, you don't need a spin chair in your business. You might, like I said, have some fidgets, toys, sensory items, Play-Doh. You can find sand or kinetic sand in the dollar section at Target or at Walmart and pick that up and just create a small little, you have it right there, a little bucket of items. I think they're just something, headphones, I know that's a lot, but headphones often do help. They might, if a child has that, if it's a loud restaurant potentially, if you want to get really deep, you can buy a set of headphones and offer that too. There are sensory inclusion certifications you can go through, but we can talk about that on the side. But
Yeah, no, I think you covered it all. The big thing is just, you don't have to redesign your business. You don't have to remodel. It's just, you know, a corner, a bin that students and families and even adults can have access to. Because at the end of the day, you know, it goes back to like when you feel anxious, like what do you do when you feel anxious? Like what are the strategies in the moment? And oftentimes, you know, a fidget toy, the little paper, sandpaper, anything like that can support in regulating your body and your feelings and your emotions. And again, this is something that when it comes to like anxiety or nervousness is something that we have all experienced. It's just at a different level when you have autism or you may have, a different disability. So, everything that you mentioned.
Yeah. Very simple.
Sarah, can I add real quick? I just want to show you this. So if you have the space, calming corners are wonderful. City of Irwindale, we don't. We have really old buildings and we're in the process of renovating, and someday we will have a sensory space. So if you can do them, that's a really amazing example that they have out front. But if you don't have the space, don't not do it. So what we've done is kind of made it mobile, which is what they were referring to as well. So our police department, every PD vehicle has a little tote like this in the back of their vehicle with very intentional calming tools that they can use to have a positive experience when they're encountering law enforcement. We have little carts that we use. We're putting these kids at every front-facing part of the city. So our library, lobby, our reception desks, anywhere where we're encountering the public, we have a library so people come in for passport photos. That's boring for anybody, but especially if you've got kids, it's torturous. So having that little kit, but then we've also put them in our employee break rooms as well. So just to really quickly show you a few things.
Can you hold that up?
Yeah, I'm going to show you what's in it. Yeah, because like Sarah said, it doesn't have to be super expensive. So there's some big ticket items that are great, but you don't have to shy away from doing it if you don't have them. They can get even smaller. We have these. I always carry these in my bag. It's a makeup bag from Walmart. When we go on trips, we have them. They have things, our police officers love these. These are, you guys seen these? They're magnetic rings, but they're intentional. So they're one-handed. So when our officers are writing the reports, they don't need two hands to use the fidget. Or our kids in our program that are doing homework, they need one-handed fidgets that they can use. They spin, they make a noise, they click, there's some resistance there. You guys have seen these, the little squishies, Play-Doh, headphones, super cheap on Amazon. Even these little mazes that you can get also that just kind of redirect your attention, like she was saying earlier. Sometimes they might have something like this at home. It's just the novelty of something new or someone different offering it to them can give like that moment where they can just regulate and get back on track. These little stickers I was showing my friends at the table, super cheap. I always carry them in my purse. I've used them in the airport when I see a little kid having a meltdown. I've used them myself when I'm like having a meltdown, but they're calming stickers. They even have like little breathing prompts, but they're textured. You can put them on your laptops, your cell phones. You can put them in your pocket, and just handing one of these to somebody who's having a difficult time can work. So you can go really big on a grand scale, but you can make it mobile and inexpensive. This is a busy board. These are $20 on Amazon. They're great for younger kids just to occupy their time so they can focus and spend a little bit of time just calming down. So don't overthink it, just do it. But also you can reach out to Sarah and people to get advice on what things work, and even talk to your employees. I'm sure they have family members that use these things.
We have lists on Amazon that just show
Yes.
everything that we purchased.
Yeah.
Do you just search for sensory?
Yeah, Amazon has
And it will
sensory
come up.
toys.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can buy small items, big items, and get that from Target, and it's pretty inexpensive.
I just want to touch on one thing because these are absolutely amazing tools, but I think yourselves personally need to know when to bring them out. Need to know the signs of someone having these meltdowns, and so that's personal education for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
I think little signs, there's the obvious ones like hand flapping, grunting, they're not speaking, not making eye contact. Those are the more commonly known ones, and that's definitely something like to recognize right away is that like, oh, okay, this kid. So if someone comes on the playground and I recognize they are wearing headphones, I'm gonna ask the parents like, is it okay, are they okay with vacuums? Because I need to clean the playground, but if I have one kid on the playground who's gonna have a bad reaction to a vacuum, then I'm not gonna bring it out. And that's just on like thinking customer service wise and speaking to the parents, because not everybody advocates for the parent and everyone's advocating for the child. And it is difficult for the parent to be going through this as well. They are constantly apologizing. They are constantly apologizing for their child's misbehavior when it's not. It's all about the community gaining an understanding that having a child with autism isn't the end of the world. It's just a retraining your brain. It's retraining your parenting style. And as a business owner, recognizing that is going to go a long way on how you are interacting with your customers. And like I said, in the long run, they're gonna come back to you because you made that memorable impression on them. And knowing when to bring those out, I think is the key thing, because you can see a kid and just be like, oh, I'll just bring out the sensory thing. Well, that may not be perfect for every kid. Yeah, it's fun, and it will entertain that kid for a little bit, but that box is meant for someone with intention and someone who is gonna need that for that little moment. And I think recognizing that is the most important part.
That was best. Thank you so much.
I just want to go back to, you know, not judging, and being compassionate and understanding and asking questions. And obviously the piece about like educating yourself. We live in a world where everybody's different. Everybody has different needs. And ensuring that we are welcoming everyone. And making that space available so that people can have a positive experience.
Should we go to questions? Any questions? I'm going
Glenn had one right here.
Well, I was taken by your story with the dog in the restaurant, and there's training for CPR.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a place where somebody like I can go to get properly trained to be able to recognize a situation and be able to step in and
someday for Awesome Sauce, that's our goal. But I think it was important to me to be a part of the chamber and part of the community so I can help out as much as possible. That is something that I look forward to doing. I think a lot of our board members, that is our end goal. That's what we've been working with for the district, to train or to have that discussion and allow other kiddos to see what our children go through every day. But yeah, we can, I think finding an organization, talking to somebody is just a start, but unfortunately, no, there's no formal training for that. And there should be, I think, because like I said, that gap is really closing in. And so I guarantee you everyone in this room is gonna be somehow come in contact or affected by what's happening with our diagnosis lately. Yes.
more
Up here, yeah,
likely that you're going to run into
exactly.
like a child with a sensory issue than you are with having to give somebody CPR.
Exactly. Exactly.
And I think that's where community is most important.
Yeah.
Because there is no formal training. We are relying on professionals. Like I said, teachers can have the biggest voice if you really want to educate yourself. Talking to professionals, talking to someone where this is their field, talking to someone who's lived this daily, because the parents are the professionals for their children and advocating for them.
Question?
Well, basically, question as well as a statement. I mean, I inherited 2 grandkids now. They're on the opposite ends. I mean, completely different. And as a parent, I see how confusing that can be, because when both of them have a meltdown at the same time, and you have one parent, how do you handle that? Because both the kids have different needs, and you can't go running back and forth. It's very harrowing. I mean, I've seen that personally. How does one handle all of that? You know, you have one kid whose hormones are getting there because he's a teenager now, and the other kid is about 8 years old, and they're completely different ways of learning. One is a very slow learner but very smart.
Yeah.
When you talk to him, it's very smart, and the other one is fast learner, equally smart. But how do you handle all of that? I mean,
Do they have a diagnosis, or
both of them have
they have a diagnosis?
Yeah.
I have, my oldest is autistic and my youngest is not, and it's like I parent new every day. And I think it's just about adjusting to what each child needs. I think I don't want to call, Kim has a person that you should talk to in regards to having, multiple children, because it is a conversation that is difficult, but I think at best we're just trying to parent in general.
Right.
But I think adjusting to their needs is what you have to do. I mean, I know, Eric, you have a little bit of knowledge in parenting children of different needs as well, so I don't know if you have any feedback.
That's a tough one. So I have 4 children. My third has something called Angelman syndrome. So there's autism in there, ataxia. He's nonverbal. And I got to share earlier with someone here that has a child nonverbal. So it's very tough. It takes a lot of patience. And the only recommendation or suggestion I can give you is you'll really listen to them and see if there's a common way that each of them can, deal with that situation, whatever it is. I know we're wrapping up, but I would say one last thing. If you're an employer, don't be afraid to hire someone with autism. We have people in our programs, we have over 400 people in our program at Goodwill. We work in restaurants, hotels, offices. We work in labs. We have a young man who puts heart valves together for a large company in Irvine. They can do anything. So please never discount them.
And well.
And
they're
very well.
They're very, yeah.
And they're not on social media all day. They work. They work all day.
One more question now.
Can I answer?
Yeah.
So I want to go back to your question because part of that is taking care of yourself, understanding that like what triggers you and what makes you anxious or escalate. Because when two kids are escalating, you don't want to go up with them. You want to go down because that will support them in de-escalating. And, in education, we always say behavior is a form of communication. So really understanding and going back to where did the behavior start? Why did they escalate?
And I want, they're both taken to me, and I want to be able to deal with them on my own also, and I'm not trained in all of that. And that, I want to offer the parents, they can come and stay with us and deal with it. That's one of the reasons I'm asking this question.
We can connect.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think a lot of us, if you guys can stay and have some conversation. We're gonna take one more question. I think it was Chris in the back.
I was going to just build on something that Eric said. We have a disabled, developmentally disabled, I don't want to have to say that too quickly, child that works for us, has for 5 years, does a great job, gets paid like everybody else. He does dishes.
Yeah.
And, you also, for those of you who don't know, you get a tax break if you hire somebody that is disabled like that.
Yeah.
And I'd like to ask the panel, we would be happy to have you guys come in and train our staff if there's a way to set that up.
Yeah, Lacey and I were talking about that actually, about doing a roundtable with maybe some on a smaller scale and having those conversations.
Sorry, I promise to make it quick. We never called it out. Your organization is a 501c3, meaning every donation goes to you, can be written off by any business.
Yes, that's true. Thank you, and Connie was bringing that up. If your beautiful flowers were donated to us, and you like to do scan that code, and everything is always appreciated. It purchased a lot of the items for our kiddos, and it funds all of our food that we provide to the families. And this weekend we're having our 3-year anniversary. Cannot believe it's been 3 years. Wow. And we've done so much, and all the donations will go back to our DJ, who is neurodiverse. She has Down syndrome, and she's going to make it a big party for our kiddos. So thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it, Lacey.